When Better Call Saul was announced back in 2014, comparisons to Breaking Bad were always inevitable. Creating a prequel to maybe the most iconic TV show ever made was never going to be an easy task. There is one season left, and we know from Game of Thrones that the last season can sink the entire ship, but I think it's safe to say at this point that Better Call Saul is a success and has only added to Breaking Bad's legacy. After Season 5, which I think most people can agree was the best season of Better Call Saul, discussions about which show is superior have become more and more common. Even in Season 4, the great Guillermo del Toro went out and said that he preferred Better Call Saul to Breaking Bad, and I will give my take on which I prefer and why, but I think it's important to make one quick distinction. I don't think there is any grounds to say that either show is quote-unquote better than the other, no pun intended. I'm not a complete subjectionist in the sense that I think it's pretty easy to recognize when there's a wide gap in artistic quality. For instance, I can say with confidence that Breaking Bad is better than 13 Reasons Why, and I can also say with confidence that the poem I wrote to pass my creative writing class isn't as good as Dante's Inferno, for instance. With that said, when it comes to near perfect pieces of art like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, I can't see how someone could objectively determine which is better. People could probably try to do so in various different ways, but personally, I don't have any interest in doing so. I'm going to go through various elements of both shows and tell you which I prefer and why, and of course you're free to agree or disagree in the comments. I'm very curious to hear other thoughts. The first thing which I like better about Breaking Bad is the overall plot. Now the plots are for the most part built around two main characters, Walter White and Jimmy McGill, and I find Walter White's story more compelling for one major reason. There's an image from the pilot of Breaking Bad which is really one of the most important of the entire series. It's the image of Walter White exercising on that little Stairmaster, looking at his past achievements, and he just goes up and down. It's a very depressing image. You can see the anguish inside of him. The story of Breaking Bad is one of a loser who gets addicted to the feeling of being a winner. And from a psychological standpoint, I don't think it could have been done any better. Jimmy McGill is a loser in a sense, but in a very different way from Walter. Jimmy is well liked by everybody he meets, he instantly makes good impressions on people, he can manipulate at will. Walt is the opposite. He sort of fades to the background of environments, and we see that perfectly well during his birthday party in the pilot. For me, seeing someone like Walter get the better of people who are his inverse made him difficult not to root for. All the people who fell in his path to the top were arrogant, very domineering people who didn't conceive that they could be beaten by someone like Walter, and they were, and it was very satisfying. It was very enjoyable seeing Jimmy succeed in spite of Chuck's interference, but let's be real about something. Jimmy's personality allows him to succeed in almost every avenue of his life. He's already had a high-paying lawyer job with Davis and Maine. He has Kim, for God's sakes, and he could have friends if he wanted to. The story of Jimmy is how and why he decides to throw all those things away, and it's a great story, but I think I'll always find Walt's more compelling. Characters are probably the most important thing to any TV show or movie, and it's difficult to compare since the shows share a lot of characters, but at the core, the main characters of Better Call Saul are Jimmy and Kim, while Breaking Bad has Walt and Jesse. Kim has been improving as a character since Season 1 and is probably one of the best characters on TV right now, but I still find Jesse a little bit more interesting. Jesse could be regarded as the true redemptive character of the entire Breaking Bad story. Walter White's family crumbles and he dies. We know where Jimmy is headed, and I don't see a happy ending for Kim either. Jesse is really the only person whose morals actually improve as the story goes along, despite the fact that he suffers worse than anybody. And that's an amazing thing. I think we could see a moral redemption for Gene, although I think Jesse as a character had an innocence and a goodness that Jimmy never really had. I already went over Walt and Jimmy a little bit, but I will add that Walter White is my favorite TV character ever, and Cranston's performance is so shockingly good. I think it'll be a long time before I find a character equally compelling. Even Sir Anthony Hopkins said that Cranston's acting was the best he's ever seen, which is a crazy statement coming from an actor of his quality. Bob Odenkirk is excellent, of course, but I think Cranston is just on another level. A lot of the subtle expressions of Walter are just genius. During the stay out of my territory scene, his expression at the end, he doesn't give some heavy-handed, evil smile or a stale, tough guy expression. Cranston found a middle ground that elevates that scene to an iconic level, and of course the scene when he calls Skyler to get her off the hook for her crimes, but is at the same time heartbroken about Hank, and he's trying to keep his Heisenberg persona going while he's on the phone. That is acting. I'm not sure acting gets any better than that. The antagonists are pretty close to equal for me. We've had so much Gus at this point, I think people forget how unreal he is in Breaking Bad. but Lalo really takes over the screen and is impossible not to enjoy. I really wish we would have gotten more Hector Salamanca in Better Call Saul before he goes into the wheelchair. Honestly, I think he's up there with Lalo and Gus when he was roaming free. Mark Margolis is just perfect in that role. Breaking Bad has Todd, of course, who's a great character. Jesse Plemons, even in El Camino when he was 600 pounds, I thought Jesse Plemons did a great job. And Uncle Jack, if you watch some season 5 of Breaking Bad, Uncle Jack is a pretty good character, actually. The actor does a great job. Better Call Saul has Nacho, awesome, and it has Chuck, who isn't really an antagonist, but he is Jimmy's foil, and Michael McKean should have won an Emmy for the role. Overall, I don't think I can separate the two in the antagonist department. Stylistically, both shows verge on perfection, especially in Season 5. There are so many breathtaking shots, and I'm sure Season 6 will find a way to top them. It may be my personal preference toward Breaking Bad and the characters of Breaking Bad, but I still would say there are more memorable images, especially when you combine them with the score and musical choices. Going back to the Stay Out of My Territory scene, they picked a song that wouldn't seem like it would work, but it's actually too perfect to even describe. It gives the scene an almost dreamlike quality, and it was a bold choice, but it worked on every level. And Gus's final walk, of course, is mind-blowing. And from top to bottom, the blood coming down from Walt's head when he shaves, I mean, that is just symbolism of the highest quality. Better Call Saul has some incredible stuff as well. The ants devouring the ice cream cone, and that could mean a lot of different things. I always saw it as sort of the good parts of Jimmy getting devoured by the coming influences, but the underworld metaphor works as well. The mirror of Jimmy's face when he looks around the corner in the Justice Building, showing the disconnect between Jimmy's two personas, just amazing. As I said earlier, I don't think there's any grounds to say which is better, but I would say that Breaking Bad has a slight edge for me in terms of visual storytelling. And the teddy bear's eye, by the way, I might need to make a video on that, but that's my favorite single image of both series. It's kind of the eye of God keeping tabs on the decisions of Walter, and I think it's kind of telling him that judgment is coming, but Walter never really pays attention. These are both almost perfect shows, and you can't go wrong with which one you prefer, but Breaking Bad has always had a special place in my heart, and no matter how Better Call Saul finishes, I can't imagine it could ever surpass Breaking Bad, but I'm excited for the last season, and maybe it will get to the point where I see them as equals. Again, let me know what your own opinion is. I'd love to hear them. Have a great rest of your day, and hopefully, I will talk to you soon. Have a good one.